YouTube! I'm back! If you saw my latest community post, you know that I went on a vacation this week. And I also said that I wasn't gonna be posting, but then when I got back, I had a few days and I was just like, I can do something simple. I can do like a vlog or something, so I have something to post for this week. I know I have that content creator fear where it's like you're not consistent, or if you like skip a week, then the YouTube algorithm forgets about you. So I will fully admit that this is a cop-out video. This is me trying to do something super simple, really fast, so that I can just post this week to make sure that I did post something and there's no posting gaps. So I went to New York City and I was really nervous because it's actually the first time that I've been on a plane. So on the first flight there, my anxiety was kind of crazy. It was at peak, imagining all of the worst outcomes, but of course the flight went perfectly fine. And when it came time to fly home, I was actually fine at that point because I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. I knew what to expect at that point. So by the time I got on the plane to go home, I was just kind of like, get us in the air, man. I want to go. I was so tired by the time we finally left New York that I was just like, I want to go home. The main reason we ended up going to New York City is because my mom really likes the singer Adam Lambert, and he's performing for a limited time in a play called Cabaret. So honestly, she kind of planned the whole trip mainly for that, but I also have always had a dream of seeing Wicked, so she also put that in there for me. And then we also just did some, general touristy things. Like we went on a few bus tours. One was just to see the city at night and see all the lights, which was really pretty. I have some photos. I'll try to input them here for you guys to see. And honestly, like New York City is kind of like a whole different vibe from day to night. Like as soon as the sun goes down and it's just lights, it's so cool. The other bus tour that we did was one of those hop on and off bus tours that will take you through uptown and downtown. And we didn't have any time to hop off and do anything in uptown, but I did really enjoy that tour because the architecture there is really pretty. I love all the old buildings. One of the crazy cool things about New York is just seeing the mixture of modern buildings with like the older buildings. it's got a very interesting culture and like makeup of all of the buildings. Like you can see like the most modern skyscraper of just glass all the way up sitting right next to like the oldest building you've ever seen. And I just loved all of the older buildings because I really love architecture, especially like more vintage aesthetics or Gothic cathedrals, things like that. So there was a lot of really cool buildings to see. And then when we did the downtown tour, we did jump off at a few places. One of them was at a boat tour where it kind of took us down the Hudson, and we like looked at some different buildings. We saw the Statue of Liberty, and it was cool. I enjoyed that, except for the fact it was freezing. I got a little bit cocky when we first got to New York because I expected it to be cold, and then it wasn't nearly as cold as I thought it was going to be. So the first day or two we were there, I was actually walking around in a short sleeve shirt. Like I was just like, oh, it's not cold here. I don't need a jacket. But then when we got on the boat and the wind picked up from the boat moving, oh, it was cold. I was proven so wrong. And so that really humbled me. That made me like almost freeze to death in an instant. So we actually ended up having to go inside the boat. Like originally we were sitting on top, but we had to go inside the boat to do the rest of the tour because I was so cold. In the future, if we go back, I would love to be able to do some more things like in Uptown, kind of like Central Park and the Natural History Museum. Those are things we kind of wanted to do this time, but we just never got a moment to do it because some of the things we had planned, some of the other tours, like the boat tour, took like way longer than we were actually expecting. So this was the furthest from home that I've ever been before, and it was totally different from my way of life. Seeing New York City, it's so crazy and such a big city. At first, we weren't very good at navigating, but towards the end, we were getting pretty good at it. I'd say we were able to figure out how to get to most places without having to reference the GPS or ask for directions. But the first couple of days was a little rough. Like, not gonna lie, there was one block outside of our hotel that we literally walked up and down 3 times before we figured out the right direction to walk in. So my mom is joking that I'm a seasoned traveler now because I know how to navigate city streets and navigate airports and go on an airplane and things like that. She's traveled a lot in her life, so she's used to it, but this is definitely my first big travel. Like any time we've ever been on vacation, it's always just been somewhere close by to like another state we could drive to. So this is kind of my first big vacation where I actually got on a plane and went somewhere. And I feel like I did learn a lot from it. So it was definitely a very good experience. And I would love to go back to New York City sometime soon, especially to see some more musicals. We only saw 2 while we were there, and there were so many more that we just saw when we were walking around that we were like, oh, that would be a really cool one to go see. Like, if we could, we would just like bop up to New York all the time and do like a weekend of musicals, but that would get expensive. And as much fun as it was, I am definitely happy to be home again because I am so tired today and I woke up with like a raging migraine this morning. So I think my body was ready to just rest and be done. Like, we did a lot more activity than we usually do at home. A lot more walking for sure. Where I live, you have to get in a car. So we only walk once we like get to a store or something. We definitely don't walk as much as we were walking in New York. I think we just had a jam-packed few days and we did a lot more activity than we're used to doing at home. So we just kind of hit a wall where all of our bodies were just like, hey, it's time to rest. I think my favorite thing was definitely seeing the musicals. We saw Wicked and Cabaret, like I said earlier, and even though my dream was to always see Wicked, I enjoyed Wicked, but I actually think my favorite of the 2 that we saw was Cabaret, because it was a very unique experience. And I wish I could have taken photos for you guys because it was so cool. The way that they did the venue and the stage and the play in general was amazing, but they had a very strict no photos policy. Like, they even put stickers over our phone cameras to get in the door. But what they ended up doing was they transformed the whole venue into sort of like this like CD club atmosphere environment. And so from the moment you walked in, you felt like you were walking into a nightclub. And then there was like bars and people dancing and performing even just out in the like main walkways and stuff before we even got to the stage. And then when we finally got to our seats, the stage was so cool. The stage was actually circular, and so the audience sat all the way around the stage. It was a total 360 view experience. And then the performers were really good at either turning around as they were singing and performing, or the stage itself was rotating. And so it felt like they did a really good job of like addressing all of the audience. Even though it kind of felt like my mom and I were sitting behind the stage, I still feel like they did a really good job of performing to everybody and using the whole stage to their advantage. It was so unique in like the way that the stage moved. It was rotating on the outside, but it also had different levels, so it could expand and go up to like 3 different heights. And so they really played with that during the whole performance, where they had some characters like on a higher level, some on a lower level, and then you could also come in through the center of the stage. So there was one point where they had like a big oversized suitcase sitting in the center, and then all of a sudden all of these dancers were coming out of the suitcase. That was really cool. And they just had like really minimalistic props. Like the only props they had the whole time were just the ones that the actors could carry on to stage with them. So it was basically like suitcases or a glass or just like different jackets and things like that. They really did a lot of storytelling with a minimal amount of props, but because they were so good at painting the image of what you were supposed to be seeing on stage, it didn't feel lacking in any way. Like, there was at one point they were describing a room that was for rent to one of the main characters, and so they're talking about a desk over here and a bed over here and like a window in front, and you could kind of picture it in your head the way that they were sort of mapping it out on the stage, even though none of that was there. So I just thought it was a really cool and unique experience, the way that they laid out the venue, the way the stage was, the way that it was just performed, choreographed, the music, even down to like the costumes. Just everything about that was phenomenal and so well done, and I could rave on about it forever. But it's kind of hard to try to explain you guys exactly how it was without having any visuals like pictures. So if you're ever in New York and you're looking at going to a musical, I would totally suggest Cabaret. It was so good. And like I said, I can't explain it to you to do it justice. You just have to see it. You have to experience the whole atmosphere that they have created. They put in so much love and just work and effort into crafting everything into the perfect experience, and you just really can't really describe it or illustrate it properly. It's just something you kind of have to go and see. And Cabaret itself is an interesting musical in my opinion, because it starts off very carefree, like everybody's dancing, partying, having a good time, just being themselves. But then it does start to get really dark at the end, because it's about the rise of a certain party whose name I will not say here due to YouTube censorship. But I feel like they handled the dark themes very well. And my mom had watched the Cabaret movie before we went to kind of refresh her memory about it. And she said that the play was much, much better than the movie, because the play included some characters that the movie didn't have. And I don't know how you could even make the movie without these characters. I haven't seen the movie myself, I only saw the play. But just based on seeing the play, I'm like, these characters that they added make the whole play. Like, they make all of the points and all of like the political discussions and things within it, like all of the important themes, it makes all of that make sense. So I'm like, how does the movie even function without these characters? I don't know. I was trying to think if I have like any really unique stories, but I feel like most of them are just like normal touristy stories, like, oh, we went here and we saw this thing. The only really unique story that we have is that we saw Nick Jonas, but we didn't talk to him because he didn't want to be spoken to. So basically, my mom and I were trying to find the Uptown bus, and the stop for the bus was not very well marked. So we were just told to walk down to a certain street, and then we weren't told anywhere to go on the street. So we walked down there and we were looking around the corner, and we just did not see anything. There was no signage for this bus tour company or anything. So we were confused, and we were just standing around waiting to see if a bus would show up. The whole time that we're standing there, there's like a black van sitting on the curb, and we didn't think much about this van, but it was there for like the entire time we were, like 15-20 minutes, something like that. And my guess is that they were waiting for the sidewalk to kind of clear out. Like, they probably wanted to be able to open the door when there was nobody standing there. However, it was a bus stop for a tour company. So unfortunately, there was never going to be a time where that sidewalk was completely clear, and my mom and I were standing literally just outside of this van, not moving. We were standing right there. And so eventually this van opens up and a guy gets out, and I don't make a note about him because I'm just looking around for this bus. I just know that it's like a guy in a tan hoodie. He gets out and he puts his hood up and he walks away. But my mom turns to me and goes, "That's Nick Jonas." And I was like, "What? Is it?" And she was like, "Yeah, it's Nick Jonas." And I was like, "How do you know that?" And she's like, "Well, I know his face. That's how I know that." But she said that what happened is she looked at the van as the door opened because it drew her attention. And as he was getting out, the wheels started turning in her head. She was like, "This is somebody I know. I recognize this person," is what she was thinking. But she was trying to figure out who exactly it was. And at the same time that she was starting to realize it was Nick Jonas, he looks up at her and they make eye contact. And she finally realizes, she's like, "Ooh, I know who this is." But when they make eye contact and he realizes that she's realizing, he like suddenly like shakes his head like, "No, don't do it. You don't see me. Don't say anything." And so she immediately agrees. Like, they have this immediate silent agreement. And he just puts his hood up and he starts walking down the street and he disappears into the crowd. And that's when she turns to me and goes, "That's Nick Jonas." I was just like, "Oh, okay, interesting." Like, I guess he just wanted to be a normal person and go walk the streets of New York, but I don't know why they decided to let him out there specifically at a bus tour stop. But luckily, my mom is pretty cool, so when he was like, don't do it. She was just like, okay. And then afterwards, she texted my dad and was like, we just saw Nick Jonas. And my dad's just like, who? So that's probably the most unique story that I have from New York. I don't really know if there's any other really funny or interesting stories. I'll have to think about that further, but I think that's a good place to just go ahead and leave it off, just to have a short little travel vlog, personal vlog. Let me know if you like this new kind of different vlog format, and let me know if you've ever been to New York City as well. I want to know, especially if you've ever been to a play, I want to know what play you saw and how you liked it, because I definitely want to go back to New York in the future and see more plays because they were great. But that's where I'm going to leave this vlog off for now. Thank you so much for watching again. Y'all have a great day. Bye bye.